So I had to learn. I had to learn to give back what I was given and not getting offended about it. I knew I didn't want to mess her up because she was my second chance. And I became the most patient individual ever. So welcome, my beautiful people, to one more episode of I Got an Accent, So What? And today's a very special one because I just hit the fourth floor, which it means I'm 40 years old officially. It's been an amazing journey. I went through my kind of sad, then joyful kind of moment. But here, my producer said, let's do an episode, Gia. How has it been to be 40 years old? But before we even start, I want to remind you guys to please comment, subscribe, download, share, and definitely comments. Your comment are is the fuel that we continue talking with each other, knowing what you guys want to hear about, and above all, it's our connection. So thank you so much for always being there. And today it's been a week and a half, right, Leticia, since Gia is officially 40 years old. So 1983, the year that Gia was born. No idea what we're going to be talking about, but go ahead, Lele. What we want to start with?
I don't know. I think, hi, Gia. Thank you for having me on your show. I mean, you don't have a lot of choice, but yeah, so tell me, what have you learned? Like, what is one thing that you learned all these years? I'm 20, on my 20s, 28. So compared to when you were 20, compared to now,
Yes.
how does it feel? What is one lesson that you're like, man, I learned that and I want to share with everybody?
One lesson only? There's many lessons.
I mean, you can tell me more, but but let's start with one about life.
Well, you know what? I am going to share something that I experienced the day after I became 40. So I remember seeing the last sunset, seeing the last everything. I don't know. I guess it was symbolic, right? I was like, no longer going to be back in my 30s. My 30s was definitely a year of growth in every aspect. But the day that I became 40, I start feeling an amazing peace. You know. I got an accent, so what, right? I experience a peace, type of fulfillment that I've never experienced before. And I don't know, it has to do with maturity. Some friends told me, gee, as soon as I turned 40, I became blind. Some friend of mine told me, I'm like, oh crap. I can still see, I have contacts, but didn't affect that. But I did feel a feeling of peace. And it was so indescribable. And I think it's because I've fought so much to control my peace and control the things that affect me. I learned, and I used to try to control everything that was coming to me. But the day that I learned how I act into things is the most important things that would not control me. And I think I'm managing well. I'm not gonna lie to you, I still feel like I'm 26, 27, 28, even 28. I'll be too old if I feel 28, to be quite honest. I think that's too old. But I do feel 26, 25.
I still think I don't know if you get this feeling, and I mean, you're just a little bit older than me, but I don't know if you get that feeling of just like I still feel like I'm a kid. Like when I'm hanging out with kids, I'm like, when am I going to grow up? I kind of like go to their level of maturity and I play with them, and I don't know why. Do you feel that? Like, do you feel like you're always a kid?
Every day, especially sometimes I have to caught myself. And for those of you that really knows Gia, I'm a joker. I'm definitely a joker. And sometimes se me pasa la mano. Sometimes I I have to be apologizing to everybody. I did to you that not that long ago. I'm like, I'm sorry. Did I went overboard? Because I forget. I'm like, crap, Gia, you're 40 years old. You shouldn't be doing these mistakes. But it happens to me even in my jokes, in my joker side. I inherit that from my father. My father is a big joker, like heavy duty joker. And but sometimes the little line goes above that. Sometimes my husband is the one. Jeremy's the one. Gia, yeah, you're Cuban, but not everybody's Cuban like you. You go ahead and be on some. I'm constantly checking myself on that. And it's like my kid side. Yeah, I think it's like I'm a little girl still. I still consider myself a little girl. I don't ever want to grow up mentally.
Me neither.
I mean, or my body, it's growing up no matter what. But I think that's something that even me speaking with my mother-in-law, sometimes she told me, you know what? I don't feel my age. And she's 78 years old. And I'm like, I feel the same way. And I thought it was me. But there's some individuals that feel more young than the other. Like in my mom case, she's always felt like she's older than her age. And my mom's skin is amazing, which, by the way, I use all these creams. I use all this treatment. And my mom freaking washes her face with soap, regular dial soap. And my mom's skin is amazing, and she's 60 years old. But I remember my mom being 39 years old and saying that she's old, and she carry herself older, and she's always retiring. And I think it's a mindset, and it's how you feel. And I always said, I don't ever want to be like that. And I always have a kid inside of me.
You have two kids. How was it? How old were you when you had them?
Well, when I had Gianfranco, I was 26 years old. And when I had Aria Rose, I was 35. So it's almost a decade by a year, two different decades. One is in the 20s and one is in the 30s.
So how you were 26? I mean, 26 nowadays to have a kid, like it's pretty young. I mean, I cannot imagine me as a mom at 26. Like no chance. How'd you feel? How'd you get that news? How'd you feel about it?
Well, let's get the facts straight. You're already past 26, so it doesn't matter.
Thank you.
Well, as you guys know, and if you guys seen the previous episode, which producer, do you remember what episode is the one that I spoke about Jeremy, the one that you interviewed me?
Yeah, it was the first season, the episode 18 and 19. That was a great
Episode
one.
18 and 19. If you guys want to know more about my early years, I speak about that. It's funny that you're the one interviewing me in that segment. So me and Jeremy got married really young. I was 20, and 20 is really young. I just cannot believe it that I was 20 when me and him got married. And due to that, I knew that I didn't want to have kids that soon. I wanted to make sure that I knew that we wanted to have business, and that was our vision. We were going to eat the world, and we still are like that. Jeremy and I, 20 years of marriage, and we still have that same, fire and passion for winning in life. And I knew I wanted to be that support system for him. And I knew having kids, that was going to hinder me and not being there 200% for him. So we waited 6 years. And I said, I think 6 years is pretty much, whether this marriage have something, there's something here, and maybe, we both will have successful businesses, and we can find out if it works, if not, didn't. But I knew wasn't not even if the marriage was going to continue or not. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't want to bring stress to the marriage, because our number one goal at that moment was to make sure our business was successful, and obviously God was guiding us through it, so I didn't want to bring any stress into that. So Gianfranco was planned 6 years after, and I was a very impatient individual. Like, I still remember today's day, very impatient. I wanted things quick. I would get worried for the most minimal things, and I would feel like I was the worst mom in the whole entire world. And then I remember one time I probably like slap him or something, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm the worst. And I remember having, support system saying that's normal. You give him structure. So if it wasn't for that support system, I would have so much guilt. But totally different with Aria Rose. With Aria Rose, She was super planned and super almost beg. And you guys know the story. Again, go to that season 1, episode 18 and 19, how I basically put an ultimatum on Jeremy for Aria Rose. But since because she was so desire and wanted, I knew I didn't want to mess her up because she was my second chance. And I became the most patient individual ever. I think that's when my whole entire persona kicked in. I always knew who I was and all that, but what do I want for life? I want something more for myself. Give myself number one because, a lot of time as wife and as individual and support system, you leave yourself last. At that moment, I knew that I need to teach this little individual that is looking at me, is the girl that I want her to look up to. Because obviously, Gianfranco has a great role model, which is, his father. But this little girl is like, she's my mini me. So I became conscious of everything that I was doing. So before I have stress, now I have more stress, but with patience, with love, with understanding, and definitely with the most gladness I could ever had because that was the little girl I've always wanted it. I had the boy, now I wanted that little girl to resemble me. So two different decades, two different mindsets, two different everything within the same individual. Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. I wonder, is that like, what is the biggest difference in your mindset, like as a mom, and then as also like a wife and a business owner?
Definitely, I've had many teachers around my career, and it's very peculiar because the three, mom, wife, and business owner, have come together in the same road. They're growing together at the same rate, and one affects the other because the three, it's different hats that I have to wear because I work with my spouse, and at the same time we have family member involved in the business, and at the same time their family and my kids family. So it is tricky, and but the most thing I have learned the most is to forgive. To forgive, because when you don't forgive, a lot of time we're like, we forget, but we don't forgive. Forgiving is letting go whatever happened, whether it was intentionally or unintentionally. And I've had many teachers in my life that have worked with us, have betrayed us, have let us down, have said they're there for us, and we had to figure it out ourselves. At the end of the day, the person that needs to be there for you, number one for me is being God, as you guys know, he's my source. The second person is definitely the partner that I pick. But that third one is definitely you. You have to be there for yourself. When people let you down, when people tell you that you're not good enough, when people start copying you and making, you know, trying to be a version of you, and which used to be, it used to bother me so much. Now it's like, man, that's the biggest compliment that I can have somebody, wanted to be like you. And that's when you know that you're maturing as an individual. But I'm not gonna lie to you, it's hard as heck, but it's very satisfying as a human, and as an individual to grow and have that grow in those three aspects of your life.
What part of those three aspects you do say is the hardest? Being a mom, being a wife, or being an entrepreneur?
The mom side, because there's three different challenges. The mom side is the guilt. You're never at ease. You're always like, I'm missing something. I have to do this. The spouse is having a strong partner next to you, and the biggest thing that I have is my husband Hart. He's a very humble man that, even though I'm the feisty one, he knows how to get to me and work me well. Like, he knows. I would say the business side. Because the business side, you have people that are not probably rooting for you. And you have a lot of people that pretend or they are your friend intentionally, and things changes. But the most challenging one is when you know and you feel when is that deadline coming to an end. And you still are hoping for the best, but you still know. So the most challenging part for me is the entrepreneurship entrepreneurship part of it. Because in my entrepreneurship part of it, there is a mentorship part that you still wish the best and for clients and for realtors and for everybody that comes to your life in that entrepreneurship. But there's so many people coming and protecting the other two area, your spouse side and your mom side. So it's a very intricate Tetris game that I feel like I've been playing for the last 20 years.
What would you think? Because I know like a lot of people look you as their mentor, in real estate and just working with you. What would you say is the hardest to like carry such a load? Because I imagine it's a load that you are always like, oh, they consider me as their mentor. What is the hardest part of it?
It's not letting them down. That even if it shouldn't affect you because people have their own effort and their agenda, but you always have the leadership position or seats. You have a different weight of people's future. You can make them and you can also break them. Again, I'm not saying that we're God here or anything like that. It's just when somebody has such a big admiration. I have a lot of people that I admire, and a lot of time they have fall from grace and they're not longer and you're like, what happened to this individual? And there's other ones that have grown in my path, and you see people's growth. But it's definitely for not letting them down, because sometimes it can be something so minimal. It could be a misinterpretation of a gesture. Probably you have so much in your head. Probably you had a long day and you were negotiating a bunch of things, and all of a sudden that person came to you, and I just went like, because I had a lot, and that gesture they interpreted differently, right? So I try to be present, and I try to be, you know, objective in the things that I do. Again, and I tell everybody, we're not perfect and we make mistake 200% of the time, but the intentions of the heart I think is what matters the most.
Do you think nowadays that we have, and I think that's something that we have been learning throughout the years, that we are all in technology and, hours scrolling and stuff like that. How do you see yourself being more present now with the things that you're doing and even with your kids? How does that different for before, maybe when technology was starting and now to you having
I know.
being in your 40s?
Absolutely. Technology, even though it facilitates so much for us, it also take the empathy and the human side of us. And that's something that I'm constantly aware of. What can I do that technology will not rub, what I meant to do as a mom? What I can do that technology will not take what I can do as a wife and definitely as an entrepreneur. So to me and those that know me, my love language is quality time. So I try to, those that know me, when I take time and when I sit with somebody and have a coffee, I want to be intentional that I'm listening to them, that I'm having a connection. So the same connection I try to have with my children, with my agents, with our buyers and seller, and of course, my creator, God. Have that connection, and please don't let me leave my husband. That's I think we have a great connection, and it's because of that we're totally different individual, but we pride in the connections and what we connect with, absolutely. And the same thing we try with our children. I try every year to find new ways and new activities and new memories and tradition to do with them that include us to be hands on them with them, and what can we do, and ask those provoking questions. So I think the human touch within technology is what we can win over technology, is being present and not just again, I give my iPad to my daughter, and it's the best invention in the whole entire world. But then I have caught myself, her being in it and so connected that she's not paying attention to me. And then I see her that technology is making her multitask. Like now she watch a TV show while she has her iPad and she's coloring. And I think it's brilliant. And if she doesn't have two at the same moment, she feels like she's not doing anything. So a lot of time I notice that she's being over, worked on her senses, but we have to also make sure that doesn't affect them, and be aware. Our bodies and our connections are very important. So our body let us know what we need and what we need to be doing. So observe our kids and our family, our husband, and the people around. The human touch and the body language never goes wrong. There has to be a connection.
Comparing to when you were younger, what is the like one insecurity of yours that you're like, man, I overcame that, and now like that is not any longer a insecurity of me.
It's so funny because I talk about this with many clients about having a podcast and how important is a podcast, because in this platform I find a lot of healing and a lot of, you know, moments that I didn't realize, and I just had a moment right now with that question. And it's the biggest compliment that I get. My biggest insecurity as a little girl was my hair. And it's the one thing I took away. I shaved my side. I wanted it not to be that. And it's funny because a lot of people, will you let it grow? I'm like, I know. Because my hair is just like my daughter's, super curly. And I didn't know how to manage it. And back then, it's not all the technology there is today or anything. So I wanted to take everything away in the sense that, and I did that when Gianfranco was born. I was 26. It's been 14 years since I cut my hair. But I never realized when I was a little girl, it was one of my biggest insecurity, my curly hair. And now I see my daughter's hair and I love her curls. And I never knew like what the heck I was thinking. So it's so funny that this platform always find a way to dig dirt on me and find a way of healing. And that's amazing.
I don't want this just to be like me asking you questions. So
Why
go
you want me
ahead.
to ask you a
Ask
question?
me a question, Tia. Since you are the host, and I don't know why I'm asking you so many
You know
questions.
what? It's because I love when people ask me questions. I tell you, it is a healing moment when people you just never thought about that, and you, not for nothing, but Leticia has really good questions. So
Thank you.
Leticia, what is one insecurity that when you were a little girl? And no
I think
crying, please. I'm just
no,
kidding.
no. I think growing up, I have always been like a sports kind of girl, and I think everyone kind of like started looking at me kind of like a little boy, and it's just like that definitely was insecurity of mine.
Yeah.
Growing up with two older brothers, and then people like, because I wouldn't play with dolls, or I mean I would, don't get me wrong, my mom would give me like those, I don't know if they have it here, but it's like a poly, it's called poly.
Oh
But
yeah, the tiny one that comes in a little box.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I would play with that, but I was more into sports. Like have always been a sports kind of girl. So growing up, and then whenever I started like wearing dresses and skirts, I don't wear that very often, just whenever I go out. But but I think that's like definitely became something that is always on my unconscious
Yeah.
side, and that I learned to don't care whatever like people want to think of me. But I think that's definitely something that it's always like in the back of my mind, like, oh, she has larger shoulders, I play tennis, of course I'm gonna have
Course.
it,
Of
like
course.
I thick legs and stuff like that. So I think that's definitely something that I have been working on, and I guess I have a few years until my 40s to work on that.
Yeah, right. Question. You know what? It's funny because talking about both insecurities, it's what we embrace right now. I embrace my hair the most, and you embrace your free soul, sportiness, badass looking, her shooting with a drone on one wheel, board, skateboard. And we learn how to embrace that at a young age, that I think that's what made us the strongest. So that was basically like our personality, and to me was that a lot of people's like, when did you decided to cut your hair? When did you? I'm like, and I just didn't realize it was that. I just wanted to be free from having what people wanted, the straight hair. And then my curly hair was a mess to curl up. Like, believe me, now that I have the little girl, now I'm going through it myself. God is like, you don't want to go through it now, you're gonna go with your daughter. um but those insecurity made us who we are, and it's a blessing because a lot of people don't have that evolution side in them, you know.
I know. Yeah, I agree. I think it's funny like how people sometimes they just put like when you're growing up it's a trauma, right?
Yeah.
And yesterday I was scrolling on TikTok. Yes, I am always on TikTok. That's my job also. But I was listening to this lady. She also has a podcast, the Coachable podcast. And I thought like she was brilliant. She was talking about trauma and healing and like the process of all this healing process, you know, like whenever we go through it. And she said something that I was like, man, that's so true. And we were talking the back scenes, and I told her like she said something like, you don't move on, you move forward just
Yeah.
because you have to. And so you always have that trauma in the back of your head, but you just move forward because you have to, and then you learn how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know, what is your take on it?
On the moving part of it and moving forward, it's a concept that is totally different. On to me, the moving forward is that you completely took everything, every root that was with that. The moving on is like you are hiding under a carpet, but in some given moment in your life, it's gonna flourish back, and it's gonna surface up again. And the again, I'm not a psychologist, but I have a lot of practice. I noticed that it come out in the worst moments of your life, and it flourishes, it flare up, like a flare up, right? It flare up in a way that the worst thing it can be in your health, it can be an emotion trauma, and if you don't know how to, that's why a lot of time when people have very deep trauma, it's to find help. Because a lot of time for me, there was many things I didn't think I could move on in my life, and I could, deal with it, that wasn't that bad. Believe me, they all came up in my 30s, and they come up whether you get your kids, and when you're running a company, and when you have a husband. Everything come up because you're so active that something is going to remind you, or you're going to have a reliving of whatever it was. It could be even having you being in places that you smell something and you're like, this remind me when I was a childhood, who had that perfume? And that's how powerful and how photogenic, or what is it? Not photogenic. Photogenic is like me, I'm photogenic. What is it called? Mente, that whatever you remember, it's like a picture in your mind.
Oh, oh man.
Jeremy's not here. You see, Jeremy doesn't, because we both have an accent. But what it is there are things in our life, like our five senses, where there's something that you hear, where there's a smell, where there's something that you tasted, or something that you said that remind you of that moment that you as a kid forgot a long time ago, or even in your adulthood. And that's how, the more, you deal with people, and the more in different aspect you're being in your adulthood, believe me, it come up. And the worst thing that you don't want it to come up is in your adulthood, like in your 40, 50, 60s, and come into a chronic disease, which, by the way, facts, only 40% of chronic sicknesses are inherited. They're, you inherit from your DNA and your parents. The other 80%, it's in your environment, things that you experience. Stress is one of the biggest one, trauma, things that you're being exposed to, that they're hidden in there. And then all of a sudden, bloop, something chronic come to you. So having that peace of mind and moving forward is very important, that when you move forward and you're cleaning and you're digging deep inside, you can actually clean house. And actually, nothing can be constructed, or nothing can be built on just something disorganized or dirt. It has to be aplanadito, it has to strain forward, it has to be flat, no big stone in the way that is going to be, compromise that structure. Again, I'm not a construction person, but it's very basic.
Thank you for the explanation. I didn't know that. Oh my god.
It comes with age.
Gia. So what would you say, like, is there any saying that someone ever told you, and every time, like, because I have one in my head, but I want to ask you first. What is, like, something that someone told you that you always remember, that you're like,
There's so many.
I mean, choose one.
There's several one. Actually, this is a funny one. I have a friend of mine. Her name is Georgette Finango, by the way. We're going to tag her here. Georgette used to work with us when we had our cell phone years. And she did a little bit when we were doing mortgage. Georgette is the most, she's from Venezuela, and she's the most social butterfly out there. And one time she was going through a situation, and I was like, Georgette, how do you deal with that? And she's like, you know what I do, Gia? I just think that everybody's crazy and I'm the only one. Right in my mind. So you're not going to get to their level. So you're just going to move forward, and you're like, they're just crazy. No, they're just crazy. And I was like, wow, that's a really good way to put it. That she feels like everybody's insane. Like she's in a hospital of insane people, and she's the only healthy, accurate one. And I was like, man, I think that will apply it every time I have a crazy person that sometimes we feel they're attacking us, and we get so resentment, and why would they do that? And if you just get it as a joke, you know what, that person is really crazy. You know what, I'm not in that level. And it's easier to move forward. It does not affect you. Think about that. Somebody comes to you, and you know that person is not right in their head. And they come and they say, Leticia, you are a green frog, you're a mother flower, you stink. Are you going to believe it? Say no. What you're going to say? No, this person is really crazy, poor people. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Doesn't affect you, right? But if you feel that person is the same level of intelligence, it's going to affect you. So I thought it was one of the most wisest and funny advice that I've ever had. And we just have to figure that out. This person is just crazy. They have no idea what they're saying. And it doesn't get to your heart.
It's actually very good, very good advice.
It is. What do you had in mind?
Not that funny, but it makes sense a lot, because before we started, I was sharing like how I want people to like me, whatever, blah blah blah. Yeah. So I always had like this thing in my head, that whenever I would see like two people talk on the side, they were talking about me. I don't know what they were talking, but they were talking about me, I'm sure. And I'm sure I heard like they're talking all good stuff.
Not good. I don't like her ear, her hair is too straight. Too brown.
So one time I was talking to actually my coach in Hawaii, and she told me, it's like, put something in your head. You're not the center of the world.
Universe.
I don't know how to say
world. Let's say universe. How about that?
Exactly. You're not the center of the universe. So people are not just talking about you. People have lives. So no one cares about you. Why you always think people are talking about you? Like, no one cares about you. And I'm like, it's true. No one cares about me. So,
oh my God. That's a little sad, Leticia.
No, in a good way. Like, like, what people have other things to worry about. It's not because you are there and then maybe they're looking on the side, just,
Of course.
like,
I know, but that's a good way so it doesn't get to you and thinking that there's something wrong with you.
exactly.
Man, Gia, you're not the only, person in the whole entire world. You're just looking
No.
around. You happen to be in the middle of their vision. I love that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. Let's talk about love.
Ay, Dios mío. Love? Yes, Leticia, I would like to know about your love life.
No, my love life is a secret. You're always trying to catch my love life. We're not going there today.
We're not. Aww.
But so you met Jeremy on the episode you shared very young. When did you knew like he was the one?
I knew I've always been very, risk taker. It wasn't that Jeremy. You know, I I always trusted God. So like I said in that episode, I challenged God. And I said, if this happens, which is impossible, because my mom didn't like him, if this happened, it's because then there's something, you see him as my husband. And it was a perfect opportunity. And within 24 hours, my mom changed her mind. So I knew that he was the one. And it was very early. I think that was, I met him at December, but we started talking around my birthday, April. And when my mom knew that we were having a relationship was in a month. And I knew because I did the challenge. I challenged God. So once I challenged God and he gave me that answer, I didn't question. And I just allowed things to happen. And we had a very we were dating, we were boyfriend and girlfriend, and comprometido, how we say it, engaged for 2 years. So yes, 20 years later. What do you think?
What do I think about what?
I think he's the one.
I think so. You guys are amazing together. But I was just thinking, like, I remember growing up, I had a friend, and she had this boyfriend, and I remember she telling me, "Oh, I don't want to break up with him. I don't really like him, but I don't want to break up with him because I'm scared that I'm going to die alone." And she was 19 years old. Not even. I think she was like 16. So I was like,
Poor
I think
girl.
you're fine.
Poor girl. She had like a big issue to be alone. What's up with her life now? She's married?
Yeah, she's married.
She's afraid to die alone.
She's married with 2 kids. Not with the same guy though. But I think nowadays, like, it became coming from someone that it's in this age and time.
This age and time. I'm still in the same 2023 like you are.
I know you are in the same stage as me, but you are married with 2 kids, so
Oh no, sure, it's a different lifestyle, yeah.
yes, thank you.
You mean a single woman like you in the market available
You don't know
and
if
young?
I'm in the market and available. How about that?
Well, it's true. Well, she is because I found her in Tinder. She has Tinder, by the way, guys. Find her. Leticia González dos Santos.
You know you cannot find people on Tinder, right?
Oh no, I don't know. You can see. I have no idea how that works.
It's not like Instagram
No,
hashtag.
it's
No.
not. Really?
What?
So how you find people on Tinder? Please enlighten me, because I only know old school way to find partners.
So one day I was like, Gia, I would love for you to have my phone. I'll give you. We should record this for a TikTok. But I told her, I'm gonna give you my phone, and then you're gonna open my Tinder, and I wanna see your reaction
To all the messages?
To all no, not the message. No, that's too private. Okay. No, to all, like, how this thing works.
That's insane. It's too stressful for me.
Do you believe in that online dating?
Well, we talked about this also, right, with Jeremy, the spicy this that we have with Jeremy. Actually, I'm not saying that doesn't work, because I do know very successful couple that they marry and everything. For instance, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, they met like that. What was the one before Tinder? There was another one. Anyways, they did. They were both engineers, and their friends opened up an account, and for them, and that's how they met. And now they have like 3 kids and almost 10 years marriage. So it does work. That is my style. Remember the part that I said that I love my human connection? I like to talk people, and I think we lie in those freaking platform. You say whatever you're not and what you like and when you want other people's to hear. And not to mention the catfish, putting pictures that is not yours. So no, not for me, not for Gia. I'm not saying that doesn't work and that there's very successful marriages for those adventurous people out there. To me, it's definitely not my style whatsoever. I would probably have fun and be like, pulling a couple people's leg, but not like do it for myself. So no, I won't. No, I don't see myself. What do you think? Do you see myself?
Definitely not.
You see?
Definitely not. But this other question, and we're talking about this, what do you do to protect your peace?
There's many ways. There's the secret way that I do it to protect my peace. That we won't talk about it, but people will not understand. But the way that I protect my personal peace is by putting myself first. When mama or when wifey or when business partner feel overwhelmed, I I I checked out for a little bit. I take out and I do a drive to the beach or do things. I'm very nature oriented. I love, everything that has to do. A sunny day is the most beautiful thing ever. The same thing as a good rainy day that you can reflect, and the beach is one of my favorite. And I love everything that has to do with the earth. So putting myself first, definitely that's how I protect my peace. So I used to be there for everybody. For everybody, guys, I'm telling you, everybody. Like if I have my BFF and all of a sudden is 8:50 and she's like, Gia, I need these shoes and I'm crying because I have this event and I will tell my husband, I have to be there and I need to be there for that person because I want that person to be there for me as well when I get the moment, right? And I will sacrifice my family and my husband and be there for that person. However, that person will take, an arm and everything, and I came home at 10 and overwhelmed and with so much and basically drained. And whenever I needed that, nobody ever went the extra mile for me. So I had to learn. I had to learn to give back what I was given and not getting offended about it and putting myself first. So that's how I protect my peace. My peace is my universe and everything. And whenever I feel worry, I just go to my prayer closet and open my Bible and I energize with God, and He's the one that gives me everything that I need. I don't have the answers to everything, but I do connect to my source, the one that created me, and I fight for my peace. And I encourage everybody to fight for their peace. There's nothing under the sun that should take your peace away. And if it does, you need to eliminate it.
Like sometimes, and I don't know if you realize that with like time, but that you do things for people that sometimes you don't want to do it. So when you say like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be there, do you do even if you don't want to?
For certain people, I do. For those that show me, and for those that, I do. I do it even if I don't want to because they've done it for me, and I've been there. But that I find any excuse to walk away, 200%, I'm not going to lie. I was like, oh, shoot, God, make something happen that I don't have to do this all the time, all the time.
I mean, things that I learned on my 20s is that sometimes I would think I would give like do so many things for people, and then even though I didn't want to, and they were like not close friends, because for close friends, whatever I do, whatever really, but I feel like people would start taking advantage of me. Do you ever felt that way, that people were taking advantage of you because they knew you were going to do it?
All the time. All the time. The difference is love and relationships are reciprocal. So I have learned if they taking advantage of me and I'm allowing it, it's because I'm allowing it with a purpose. It's because I'm taking advantage back as well. So Jeremy takes advantage of me all the time. What do you think marriage is all about? My kids take advantage of me all the time. But in every relationship is reciprocal. You're the one that allowed that. And that is the difference. So then if you're hating yourself for it, you're the one that put yourself in that predicament, and in that position. So I have learned to say no, or I have learned to say, no, maybe that's not what I want. But I used to, put myself in position and not wanting to be there just because I'm nice, and then people take advantage. Because once somebody take advantage, they just don't take an advantage a little bit. They go all the way. They go all the way until you're bleeding. And I learned that until I'm like, ouch, it hurts. I don't want it no more. So I learned how to say no from the beginning. So then when I'm not in pain, then I look. Because at the end of the day, let me tell you something. If somebody's taking advantage of you and you allow that, at the end of the day, you're going to be the bad guy no matter what. So I bet I'd rather be the bad guy from the beginning and not when I'm bleeding and it's hurting. Because then, you're in very uncomfortable position.
To finish up, what is one thing that you'll be like, man, I wish I knew that when I was younger?
Especially this that we just spoke about. I wish that saying no doesn't make me a bad person. I wish that saying no is protecting me to even have a better relationship with somebody. Because remember, relationship is parameter that you put in. If you tell somebody no, but if you don't say nothing, then you're assuming. And I used to assume. So I've learned that we need to ask and put the parameter and not assume. So I wished that I've said no, or I don't feel comfortable, or you know what, I'll get back to you. That word that I'll get back to you, we don't always have to have an answer, because when you used to be a pleaser or person that pleases other, you had to say yes, and you felt like you have to say yes all the time to show that person that you're there. But saying, let me get back to you, you're telling subliminally to that person, it's like, I need to find out what's a priority to me, and I'll get back to you if it's something that it's feasible or it's a possibility in my schedule. Why are you telling that people or that person? You're telling that person that I'm putting myself first, and not anybody can walk or all over me, and respecting yourself, that's a biggest way that you can respect yourself, and saying no to somebody. Listen, that's not a good deal for me. Let me think about it. I'll get back to you. Or listen, I don't think that you the good friend for me, or vice versa. Why do we have an issue telling somebody, listen, you're not a person that I don't think I want to be around. I wish you all the best, but I'm in a point in my life that I want something more than something just there.
You say that learning how to say no to people helped you a lot. And I think that's one of the hardest thing I have faced, or like I ever had issue with it. And I think a lot of people also do, because like you said, you're still going to be the bad guy. So you may as well do whatever the heck you want and say, no, I don't want to do that. And then be the bad guy, or, do it and then waste your freaking time with
Absolutely.
people.
Absolutely. especially that you end up to be the bad guy. And it's not that you end up being the bad guy and things move on. It's how they make other feel like you're the bad guy, and then they spread rumors. Oh, so and such did this, and such did that, and things come up. And but at the end of the day, it shows you that that person was never there for you, and it was there just to take advantage. And if they didn't see the value, guess what? Shame on them. You should never show nobody your value. They should be able to see it, and like a flower, cultivate it, maintain it, keep it alive, feed it. Let talk to that person. I'm here for you. Not just it's not one way highway. So, to me, one of my biggest saying is that love is reciprocal. You don't demand love, even into our families. We were born into our family. We didn't say to be born to each family, and that's one of the biggest thing. I had a good friend of mine that told me that time, and I was like, oh my God, you're so absolutely right. He said we should honor our family. However, we don't have to love them because we didn't if they did not ask to be born into that family. So love is reciprocal. You give, you get what you give. So if you give love, you're going to get love. But just because you're my family member doesn't mean that I have to love you. I'll respect you. But that doesn't mean that I have to. And that's a lot of time when you see, families, toxic families, that they have a very weird dynamic, and there's one person taking advantage of the other. And it's because love is reciprocal. And the word forgiveness and be humble goes a long way, because we all make mistake all the time. But saying, man, I messed up, or I said something that came across wrong, Leticia, I'm sorry, that was not my intention. But if I don't say anything, and you tell me, ouch, it hurt me, and I didn't apologize, then, definitely it's a pride issue. So those people were not meant to be in your life. They were there to teach you a lesson.
And that is a great way to end. Thank you so much. I loved it. It was kind of like, it was very therapeutic, and that's why I love podcasts.
Therapeutic. Oh my God, we're learning so many words here.
Let us know if you like a part two.
Yes, a part two. If you want to know more about life experiences, Leticia in her almost 30 and me in my beginning 40s.
Yes.
Don't forget to subscribe again, rate, comment, share. Put everything, guys. I love what you guys, your comments and everything, and my producer over here. But remember, the one making this a reality is my amazing partner in Pop Media Lab, which branding is coming very soon. We will brand everything, and they're the one that made this a reality. They're the one that have made I Got an Accent a reality, as well as 200% Live, as well as Chat, the Golden Hour, and many other shows that we have, that I don't, is we my Portuguese, Marcelo, and it's just, this is a dream come true. Great producer, great company, and thank you again for making this super special on my 40th birthday edition. Kisses, my family. I love you all, and remember, love is reciprocal.